What if you had the opportunity to play a game that was a single-player, story-driven experience that at the same time had the deep combat of a fighting game and the mechanics of a JRPG game, similar to maybe a Final Fantasy or a Dragon Quest title? That is what we are going to cover today, a new upcoming indie fighting game that at the same time is a JRPG, a Fighters Nova Mindara. It's a very creative and innovative project that I wanted to talk about, and it is actually public right now with a demo on Steam, while also having a Kickstarter campaign. So if it is something that it seems interesting for you, check out their Kickstarter after watching the video and also try their game out. Like and subscribe if you want to see more indie fighting games on the channel and other projects. Thank you, and now let's get into the game. So what makes a Fighters Nova Mindara unique, like I said before, is that you can play both a fighting game and a JRPG at the same time. You're gonna boot up the game and see that there is a world to explore with things to unlock, secrets, NPCs to talk with, and a unique story and narrative. But then when you engage with the gameplay or combat, you can play both a fighting game and a JRPG simultaneously. You're gonna see the mechanics of games like Marvel vs. Capcom or Dragon Ball FighterZ, because it is a tag fighting game or a team-based fighting game in which you can play multiple characters at the same time, and your party is going to get bigger over the development of the story or narrative and the progression. But then you can also use the spells or magic, whatever way you want to call it or conceptualize it like, and it is similar like the mechanics of a game like Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest. And both of these styles of gameplay are present in the same game at the same time. So for example, you can use some moves from a fighting game, like a couple of normal attacks into a special move, and then use another of your teammates or tag in and apply one of the JRPG style mechanics to extend a combo, or actually just engage with the general combat of the opponent. And it is a very unique take on what a fighting game and a JRPG can be when you mix them together. Some examples of JRPG style attacks or mechanics that you can use very early in the game are things like healing yourself and your teammates or party, also for example applying armor to your moves and overall combat options, or even having new unique extra attacks that are only available if you apply the JRPG systems in the game into the fighting game loop or combat in the actual fights of the experience of the gameplay. So it is a very unique take on how, again, JRPG style mechanics can engage with fighting game gameplay. But then let's say for example that you're a big fan of the gameplay of fighting games and you think, I don't want to play this game because it is probably quite simple since it is a story-driven single player experience. And well, there you're actually quite wrong, because even though the game is quite accessible and also relatively easy for somebody that is new to fighting games and just wants to enjoy a story and a good game at the same time, if you put your time into it, you're gonna find some really crazy combos and interactions. And since it is a tag game as well, there is a lot to learn and a lot of depth in the gameplay, even if you're always playing against a computer or a CPU. So this is a game for everybody. If you're a fan of JRPGs and you want to chill, a story-driven single-player experience that at the same time, it's actually an opportunity to dive into fighting games on a more kind of like easy setting, then it is for you. And at the same time, if you're a hardcore fan of fighting games and you like a good story, but also crazy gameplay, the game offers that for you as well. So it is actually quite a complete package as a video game. There is something for you if you're a JRPG fan or a story-driven single-player game fan. There's also something for you if you're a fan of fighting games under gameplay and more. So maybe you should give the game an opportunity. Then on top of all of this, the game actually has a lot of elements related to exploring the world and building your own party and the overall story and narrative of the experience. For example, you have the opportunity to explore the different maps in the game with specific mechanics or attacks attached to each one of the characters you can add to your party. So there is going to be a specific parts of the map that you can only access if you use the unique attack of one of the characters. Then on top of that, there's also character progression and synergy systems within the context of the game. And the demo, you cannot access this because it is an early prototype, but then later when the actual game comes out, there's going to be opportunities to, for example, build a specific synergies and strategies with different characters in your party, and also kind of like level up their attacks and abilities. And something really cool about all of this is that the game actually has a bonding system, very JRPG-like, and you can essentially connect two characters as a duo over time if you upgrade their stats and special moves together, and that unlocks new content and experiences within the game. Oh, and I almost forgot about it, but the game also has something that is called Fragments of Memories, and it is essentially unique items that are hidden within the context of every single map, and if you collect them and find them all together, you get access to new lore or specific parts of the story of different characters. But now let's actually talk a bit about the story, the narrative, you know, the world building and aesthetic of the game and project, and it is very obviously inspired by manga, specifically by classic shonen manga, things like Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Hunter x Hunter, and more. And the person behind all the panels and the art of the game is actually one of the illustrators of Clock Striker, a manga from Saturday AM. So there's a lot of love and work behind the story, the aesthetic, and the art of this game. Then obviously on top of that, the game has its own unique story and narrative that was created for the project, and you're gonna see that it connects a lot with fighting game, and specifically with a tournament. I'm not gonna go into much detail because I don't want to spoil anything from the game, but you can check more stuff about it on the Kickstarter info, and also you're gonna learn more about it when you actually play the game. But there's a lot of fighting related to the lore and story of the project. Another thing that is super cool about the game, and I really appreciate because it helps so much with the world building and the overall aesthetic of the project, is actually the music, because the person behind the music is Hiroki Kikuta, if I'm saying his name right, which is the person behind projects such as Secret of Mana and Soul Calibur 5. So the overall caliber of the story, the narrative, the aesthetic, everything that we have been talking about is actually top notch. You have somebody from legendary titles making the music, also a very acclaimed artist with all the artwork in the game and the overall panels and aesthetic of the project, and there's just so much love on the lore and the world building of this indie fighting game that is also a JRPG. It is, like I said before, I think one of the most unique and also creative projects that I've seen in a while from an indie developer that tries to do a new, unique take on fighting games, and also in this case, JRPGs. So I really hope that maybe this video gives you a push to try the game out. You can play it for free right now on Steam with a demo and no commitment whatsoever. And then maybe if you feel like you really like it or something super interesting and the project seems unique for you and what you like, you can go to their Kickstarter campaign that is still live right now and support their title. I think that is a very unique take in fighting games, in JRPG games, and I want to see more indie fighting games that succeed and put something unique into the genre. So like and subscribe if you want to see more content for indie titles. Thank you for watching. Give A Fighter's Nova Mindara a try on Steam and their Kickstarter campaign, and see you on the next one. Take care.